Rehm. She's going to come up and share her story.
Hello, my name is Morgan. I'd just like to thank everybody for being here and just being part of the celebration of our new lives in Christ. I'm 20 years old and I was very blessed to have grown up in a Christian family. My parents always tried their best to guide me in the way to go, leading me to Jesus. I had accepted Christ into my heart when I was 4 in Sunday school. I was so young and I don't think I realized what I had just committed my life to. I always knew about God, the Bible, knew how to pray, but I didn't personally know God, His character, or His love that He so freely gives. I had a head knowledge, but I needed a heart knowledge. I was extremely rebellious, selfish, angry, and an ugly person before my relationship with Christ. I have always been athletic since I was little. I started running track at the age of 6 and still remember my first track meet at Orange Glen High School. As I got older, I started looking for all the wrong attention and love, and I lost myself. I had so much hate, and I was always getting into trouble and sneaking around. When I was 14 is when I started dating a guy, and this is when I started experimenting with drugs and alcohol. I began to lose sight of goals that I had. I was compromising the important things. Throughout the years, I had experimented with other drugs that I thought I would never touch. My senior year is when I lost my passion to run. I was receiving letters and scholarships for track, but it was no longer something that I wanted to do. I realized that if I went to school, I would have to leave the relationship that I was in, and at the time it seemed like the end of the world when my world was really ending anyways. My ex was always degrading and verbally abusive. Never once did I ever think that it would lead to physical abuse, but after time it did. I was stuck in a vicious cycle. I accepted the love that I thought I deserved. I was living out of my car for a little while after high school, and then I moved in with him and things only got worse. During that time, I had no contact with my family for a matter of months, and this is when I started doing cocaine and ecstasy. I wasn't eating because the necessary things in life weren't as important as the drugs made me feel. The fighting got worse between me and my boyfriend, and the abuse even more so. God had spoke to me one morning through a song and through Jeremiah 29:11. At that moment, I realized that I was not living the life that He wanted me to live. The spiritual battle had just begun. This is when I first reached out for help. My parents, not knowing what to do, looked at rehabs. They found one that was 3 months long. It did help, but it did not heal my heart, and unfortunately, I did not complete it. Having nowhere to go, I started to stay at friends' houses, and that took me to lower places, and that is when I started to use heroin. When the Bible talks about in Matthew 12 how the unclean spirit goes and takes along with it 7 other spirits more wicked than itself, and they go in and live there, and the last state of the man becomes worse, I experienced that firsthand. A few months passed and I reached out to my parents when I was at a low point again. My mom had told me about Teen Challenge and I was so opposed to it. I had an interview in San Diego, and there I had realized that things were going to be way different if I decided to go. Because of decisions that I had made in choosing that lifestyle over family, the relationship with my brother and sister wasn't even really existent. Again, I reached out to my parents and moved back home for the last time. I hadn't changed the friends I was communicating with or the lifestyle I was living. In my head, the grass was always greener on the other side, and I listened to lies from the enemy for so long that I believed them. I left my parents and moved back in with my ex again. Things were exactly the same as before, and I was tired of feeling empty. I reached out to my mom and dad for a final time, and they were fed up with my lies and my disrespect. They had told me they would only support me in my wellness and refused to let me come home. It was now my choice to reach out to Teen Challenge. I was taken to an interview by one of my mom's close friends, Kim, whose son also graduated Teen Challenge. I know for a fact that God was not going to let me run any further away from Him. Bakersfield had an opening the very next morning. I had tried everything in my power not to go, but God had bigger plans. I went in kicking and screaming, but also afraid of the life change that was going to take place. A year seemed so long at the time, but what I didn't realize was that it wasn't a year, it was the rest of my life. For the first time, I had to face my problems and not escape them. God had to take me out of my simple context, and it was the best decision I ever made. It is amazing to me that God knew that I would turn away from Him, and He still loved me and had open arms anyways. The first couple months I did not want to be there, but the more that I was there, my heart was softening. I remember asking God to forgive me of my sins and feeling so free knowing His presence. I will never forget the first time that God revealed himself to me through a bird. I had asked him to show me a sign that he had heard my prayers. It seemed like he had so many more important things to do than pay attention to me. I noticed the bird when I was worshiping in the chapel one day. I never thought that God could be revealed to me in something so simple, something that I see every day, but he did. And in that moment, he told me so clearly that I was exactly where I needed to be. While I was in Ventura is when I would say I grew the most. I truly found myself. I learned how to be content in my own skin. And my bird did follow me to Ventura. I saw that bird every day during my time in Ventura. It was a reminder that God was with me. I began to understand and know God in personal ways that I didn't even know were possible before. Restoration was just around the corner. From the first week of Teen Challenge, I prayed every Monday in intercessory prayer that my family and the relationship with my brother and sister would be restored. It did not happen immediately, but I trusted that in God's timing, everything would be the way that he planned for me. By my first weekend pass, the relationship with my brother and sister was restored and my family was together after 2 years. With each week and month, things started to become even more than I had ever imagined. It is only because of God's strength that I stayed and am a changed person today. For when I was weak, he was strong. As human beings, we are made to be dependent. Where I once was dependent on drugs, I am now dependent on Christ. While I was planning my time after Teen Challenge, I got confirmations from God that I was supposed to go back and run track. God had told me, "You have run before, but this time you will run with purpose." I began training my last 3 months of the program to get back into shape, and I did the best of my ability to utilize my time in Teen Challenge. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, a whole year to focus on myself, something that I would never have again. When I think back, the year flew by, and I wouldn't change one thing that I experienced or had to go through because it made me who I am today. I am a completely different person today and am forever grateful for God and his mighty power and the foundation that Teen Challenge had provided for me. I am currently living at home, going to school, and running track at Mesa College. I also got a job working for an informational service company. When I was getting close to leaving Teen Challenge, I was saying how it would be amazing if the bird followed me home, and it has been at track practice every day. It is a reminder that I am right where I need to be, and wherever I go, God is there. God worked everything out for my good in his timing and not mine. Having been home for a month, I have realized that every day and every decision is a choice as to whether or not I will honor God. Without him, I am and have nothing. I am so grateful for God's transformation power in my life. I was once lost, but now I am a new creation in Christ Jesus.
Morgan, for sharing your story, and we're just excited about all that God has given back to you and restored in your life. And looking forward to see what God does in your track future. That'd be cool.